Assistant Deputy President, Professor Kevin Downing, Secretary to Council, Professor Henry Chung, Dean of Students, and we have Mr. Jeffrey Lam, who is in charge of the bill. It is the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call to order the meeting. Agenda item 2. This bill is introduced by Mr. Jeffrey Lam as a member's bill. The Bills Committee will first discuss the policy matters related to the bill. Before we begin the discussion, I'd like to consult members on whether there is a need to invite the public to provide their views on the bill in writing or by way of attending a public hearing. If necessary, the committee will put up a notice on the LegCo website, and all the submissions received will be passed on to CTU for a consolidated response. Before members express their views, I'd like to invite Professor Henry Chung, Dean of Students of the University, to tell us what kind of consultations you have conducted among students as well as the Students' Union. Thank you, Chair. We have in total conducted 7 consultation sessions. We invited students from different schools, colleges, as well as faculties, as well as student leaders from different student clubs and societies. We collected their views. We got 41% of the students who are in support of our proposed amendment in relation to the open election proposal. And that's how we came up with this amendment proposal. All right. Members, do you think it is necessary for us to invite the public to provide their views in writing? No? All right. Members, if you would like to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. Now I will invite Mr. Jeffrey Lam to give an opening speech. Then I'll invite Mr. Michael Ngai, Chairman of the University Council, to speak. Mr. Lam. Thank you, Chairman. I have talked to the CTU Council a number of times about this amendment bill. I agree to this bill. I think this amendment bill is a practical way to address the lack of representativeness of the president of the Students' Union on the Council. I will propose some technical amendments in light of the views given by the Legal Service Division of LegCo. In relation to the amendment bill, I will ask the university to tell you more. We hope that the second reading debate will be able to be resumed as soon as possible, and hopefully before the council breaks, we'll be able to pass the bill. I thank all the colleagues for their effort to help improve the ordinance. Thank you. Mr. Ngai. Thank you, Chairman and members. The purpose of this bill is to amend Cap 1132, the City University of Hong Kong Ordinance. Currently, Section 10, subsection 1J of the ordinance provides that the president of SU is an ex officio member of the CTU Council. This amendment bill suggests that we should have an undergraduate student member elected to replace the president of the SU to sit on the council as a member. The bill also provides for relevant matters on the technical level. The amendment bill seeks to strengthen the representativeness of the undergraduate student member of the University Council. The University Council has widely consulted students on this. Among the 8 UGC-funded universities, including CHK Hong Kong U, the HKUST, as well as the Lingnan University, they also follow the practice of having an elected student representative to sit on their councils instead of having the president of the students' union sitting on the council. As said, we have consulted undergraduate students on this from different schools, colleges, faculties, as well as student clubs. We talked to these student leaders about the election mechanism proposed. We listened to their views and collected their views. We have in total conducted 7 consultation sessions. The purpose of introducing this amendment bill is to have an elected student representative to sit on the council, and we find that the new proposed election mechanism is appropriate. We have considered students' views given during the consultation. The then president of the Students' Union also attended the consultation. Among the 117 students who attended the sessions, 22% lean towards keeping the status quo, and 41% of them support the proposed amendment, and the rest of them, they do not have particular views. The university also consulted the Education Bureau on this, and the Bureau has in principle no objections to this bill. I'd like to ask the President to tell you more. Yes.
Address the issue that the student union can no longer be considered representative of the undergraduate students at City University, Hong Kong. Currently, less than 15% of undergraduate students are members of the student union. In other words, more than 85% of undergraduate students are not entitled to participate in selecting the student union president, who sits as a member of the City University Council. In the past 5 years, with the exception of 2022, the student union has failed to properly elect a president and an executive committee for reasons including, number 1, the absence of nominations, which made it impossible to have an election, and number 2, less than 10%, the threshold of those who are entitled to vote at the president's election, did vote. By way of an update, while the student union has recently elected a president and an executive committee at its election conducted in February 2025, it is noted that the voting rate remains low at 12.2% of the eligible electors. The number of registered student members of the student union further decreased down to 1,782 out of a total of 12,361 undergraduate students, less than 15%. CTU Council has expressed concern over the student union's lack of representativeness over the past years. In June 2024, the student union's failure to properly elect a president continued. The proposed amendments were first considered by the CTU Council at its meeting in November 2023. The then acting president of Student Union, as an ex-officio member of the CTU Council, was present and participated in discussions on the proposed amendments at that meeting. Meeting reports on the Council's discussion on this issue are accessible to all staff and students on CityU's website, ensuring a high level of transparency. As noted by the CityU Council Chairman earlier, CityU consulted the undergraduate student community on the content of this amendment. 7 consultation sessions were held by the Dean of Students to solicit the views of the 177 student leaders from a diverse range of background, including members of the student union. The consultation revealed that there was good support for the direct election of an undergraduate student to serve on the council. We believe the proposed amendment would open up the opportunity for all undergraduate students to participate in electing their representative to sit on the CityU Council. Separately, the postgraduate student member on the CityU Council is returned by election for which all postgraduate students are entitled to vote. We propose that a mechanism with substantially the same features should be in place for undergraduate students. After the bill is passed into law by the Legislative Council and has come into force, all CityU undergraduates will enjoy the same rights as those enjoyed by postgraduate students in electing their own representative to sit on board the CityU Council. Thank you, Chairman.
OK， 多謝。仲有冇同事？嗱，我而家
All right. We'll open the floor now for questions. I will read out the names of members who have pressed the button to speak. They are Professor Leung, Dr. Chow Man Kong, Mr. Benson Look, Dr. Teck Chi Yun, Dr. Johnny Mr. Rock Chen, Mr. Chen Shu Hong, Mr. Brave Chen, and Mr. Dennis Leung. Professor Leung, I first declare that I am a professor of law at the City University. Over the past 30 years, some law students have had the opportunity to take part in the work of the Students' Union or served as the president of the union. I myself, when I studied at the university, also served as the president of the Students' Union. According to my observation, different universities have had in recent years made amendments to their ordinances in relation to how the student representative at their council should be elected. I agree the direction that we're taking now, and I think this is going to make the university healthier. According to my observation, students who take part in student clubs or students' union, the voting rate is rather low. Indeed, over the past few years, because of various reasons, students have not been very enthusiastic in taking part in students' organizations or activities. The University Council is influential, and I think we should give the opportunity for students to elect a student representative to sit on the council. And it is only this that we will be able to allow the council to play its role. People always stress the difference between the students' union as well as the university council in terms of their stance. However, I think that the student representative can speak on behalf of the students, and at the same time they can communicate with the council members. For example, I see that some postgraduate student representatives, they're able to help resolve some crisis for the university, and they help explain certain incidents or crises to their students, and this can help minimize misunderstandings. Therefore, all along, I support that there should be a student representative sitting on the council. I speak in support of this proposed amendment to the bill or to the ordinance. I hope that With the passage of the bill and with the new election mechanism, the university will take the opportunity to explain to students about this as well as its policies. This is just a comment from me, and the university does not necessarily have to respond to this unless they have something to speak about my opinion.
一位周文講。
Next, Professor Chow Min Kong. Thank you, Chairman. I am a teaching staff member at City U. This is a bill from Mr. Jeffrey Lam. The bill covers mainly two things. We all know that, so I won't go into the specifics again. So I think this is in line with the university's overall interest. We can fix the problem with the representativeness of the member, the undergraduate member, and 5 out of the 8 UGC universities have taken similar measures. And there are other universities that directly appoint the student member on their council. What we're doing is a more progressive approach. So once this bill is passed, the student member, meaning the undergrad student member, should play a better role in the dialogue between City U and its students. So I support Mr. Jeffrey Lam's bill. Thank you. Now, some members wonder why I'm not setting any time limit on each member's round. Now, I want everyone to be able to speak their mind. But of course, we should try to avoid asking questions that have already been asked. But I do ask members to be brief in their comments and questions. We now come to Mr. Benson Look. Chairman, this amendment bill is about electing the undergrad representative more effectively so that that person becomes more representative. And this is also about aligning the practice for electing the undergrad member and the postgrad member. So representativeness aside, it's also about improving governance. I once served on my student union when I was at university. Now, I do have some concerns on my side, so here they are. Now, we want people who are patriotic, who love Hong Kong and love the university. It's important to have such people elected from and among students and have them serve on the council. So I'm wondering if City U will require those candidates to follow Hong Kong's laws during campaigning, including following the Hong Kong national security law. And once these students are elected, will there be some kind of oath taking that they will continue to follow those laws? Meaning you appoint them after they take an oath. Will you do that? Now, here's another point. One objective for this amendment is to increase the representativeness of the undergrad member. As the paper says, at the last reported election in mid-2024, 146 students voted. And the voting rate was below 7%, and they couldn't elect a SU president. So after this was passed, you will see a much larger electorate because all undergraduate students will become eligible voters. So how will City U improve or boost the voting rate? Now, let's look at the executive committee of SUs. They work as kind of like a cabinet. Now, after this change, the undergrad member will function as an individual rather than as a team. So what will City U do to support this undergrad member in the future to do its job so that they could help students and City U to fix problems? So who will take the questions, please? Mr. Ngai? So I'll say a few words, and then my colleagues can supplement my response. So first of all, I thank Mr. Benson Look for his questions. Now, on the Hong Kong national security law, City U has always advised students to say they would follow Hong Kong's laws, including the HKNSL, during campaigning, and we also encourage them to follow City U's rules and regulations. And then after these students were elected, CityU has organized various events to raise national security awareness and the law-abiding obligations among staff, students, and council members. CityU has always been reviewing its guidelines and policies to make sure all staff members and students are fully aware that they have to follow the law, including following the national security legislation. Now, on representativeness and the electorate, after the meeting today, we will start something right away, and that is we will be working on the details. We will set up task forces. We will explain the whole point of the election and how it will work, the nitty-gritty and the merits of this new system to students. We will explain the structure of the council. We want students to know how all that will work so that students get a sense of what their responsibility will be like. And so there will be some explaining, some promotion. After the bill is passed, now we will also set up a task force to work on the strategy for the election. And the student development services will also work with different divisions within CityU. We will work through different channels such as in bulletins. We will do university-wide publicity. There will be a dedicated website on the election. So we will do a number of things so that students become aware of this. So in the future, 12,000 undergrad students will be able to vote for their representative. And now over to the Provost about our election. There was a question about oath-taking. I don't think that was answered. So you're saying that you don't need oath-taking for the entire council? Correct. Professor Lee? Thank you, Chairman. In terms of support, CityU provides leadership development programs for students, especially for student members. We will step up work on that front so that students get the proper training. As for the Secretariat of the Council, they also provide secretarial and clerical support for student members to do their job. Professor Downing, so you raised your hand.
I want to just refer to the honourable member's first part of your question about oath-taking. Whilst I don't want to preempt what Council might decide to do as we move forward with this, we need to take into account that CityU is world #1 and has been for 2 years most international university, according to the Times Higher. What we are doing is this year we're introducing a compulsory course for all undergraduates, which will include the laws of Hong Kong, including the national security law. A full range of issues related to that will be contained within that course. Every undergraduate student must take that course. The other thing that you may not be aware of is that in our code of conduct, which I'm happy to share, we adopt the 7 Nolan principles in relation to the behaviour of all council members. That includes integrity and leadership. So I'm confident that, like everyone in this room, our students, wherever they come from, will learn to love Hong Kong, and that there's probably, unless Council decides, no need for a formal oath. After all, we're all bound by the laws of Hong Kong.
Hao Zhang.
Mr. Freddie Moy.
You have been previous leaders and have learned, and now are very responsible members of the government. I think that in the same way, I see the properly elected students, that we have a job to educate them in how to be a good and useful stakeholder. One of the things I did previously in Singapore when I ran the university as provost was to provide the means for the student representative to participate in the budget process. and also to allow them to bring up projects for which will benefit the students. I intend to do that as and when this bill is passed and the student representative is properly elected. Thank you.
陸漢文議員仲有冇跟進？
Mr. Benson, look, any follow-up question from you? No follow-up? We come to Dr. Tik Chi-yuen. Thank you, Chairman. I support this bill. We're amending this ordinance. It's about student participation. So it will be one student, one vote. That's good. We're trying something new so that more students pay attention to what goes on at the university. But from members' remarks, I have sensed something. Students have been less keen on taking part in university affairs. That's a concern. Students take part on the council. That's a good experience, and that's also good for a university's development. Now, once this bill is passed, there will be greater recognition. When students are not keen to take part in university affairs, and you may have a recognition issue. When the voting rate is less than 10%, that may not be some place we want to be in. So I'm saying when you organize the first election, so please get it right. So apart from the procedure, the events, please also encourage competition. With competition, different students may back different candidates, and that may work even better than doing, say, webinars. So that's something maybe City you can do. That's a suggestion from me. With this amendment, we're trying to boost the representativeness. But let's also not try to hurt the position of student unions. Student unions help students grow. And let's not try to sideline the SU. I don't think that's what we want to do. So my point is, student unions should remain an important part of the university. Student unions are also returned through election. SUs are also representative. Is there a way for the views of the SU to be reflected on the council? Of course, we will have this undergrad member. SUs also have the backing of students. How do we reflect the views of the SU on the council? Will there be a mechanism to achieve that? Now, I've talked to university students. Students these days are less keen on taking part in SU affairs. So what can we do to get students involved in SUs to help them grow? Thank you. Now, before we get a response, I want to say something. At CUHK, we amended our own ordinance, but we never hurt the position. We never sidelined the SU. City U and CU take the same approach. Student unions work like cabinet. At CU, you get the entire student population to vote. It's better than doing cabinet. So at CUHK, we have discussed this matter. We never sidelined the SU. Thank you, Chairman, for your supplement. I think CUHK is a good reference. You said below 10%, if you fail to hit the 10% threshold, you have to try again to elect a president. So for 12,000 students, you need at least 1,200 students to vote before you can meet the threshold, and then you get a valid election result. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Chairman, I want to give a response here. Let's look at student participation. Now, more student participation does not necessarily lead to better grades. City U has been improving its standing over the years. Students spend time at university for good education. students can make a greater contribution to society through the good education they receive at the university. Of course, involvement in an SU matters, but is that everything? I have reservations. Professor Freddie Moon.
Get to be heard as part of a major stakeholder of the university. I've not been in CDU for 2 years, not yet. In May, I will have a full 2 years. Since I've been the president, I have gone round to every single college and department for dialogue sessions, 33 sessions in all. I've also gone to every single administrative department to have a dialogue with them. This year, I have every intention to go to all the student representatives to have a dialogue and have a feedback from them. So aside from the officially elected representative, they will have opportunity, including the student union, to have a dialogue with myself and with my team. They often come together with me. Thank you.
仲有冇同
Follow-up questions from other members.
OK 有冇
Dr. Teck Shi-yun, any follow-up questions? All right, Dr. Johnny Thank you, Chairman. I very much support this amendment bill. It will increase the representativeness of the undergrad student representative on the council, and it will also improve the governance of the university. As mentioned by other members, students are a key part of the university. It is important that we have a student representative on the council. I'd like to ask about the new mechanism. Are there ways to ensure that the elected student representative has the holistic perspectives? That is, the student representative will not only represent a minor group of students. Will there be programs or training schemes to make this happen? That is, to ensure the elected representative will be able to play his or her role. Also, some members or some representatives of the university said that the students' union will continue to exist. Will the university support the students' union so that it will become a good partner working with the university? To improve the management of student affairs and that the university will get the recognition from its students. I believe if this can be achieved, it will be really good. I will reply first and then our provost will supplement. I thank Dr. Johnny for the questions. I'd like to share with you the vision of our university. Students are important stakeholders of the university. They are part of the big family. We work with the students. We are concerned about the future development of the university as well as the future development of our students. The students' union also is an important part of the university. There will be a collaboration mechanism. In future, the elected student representative will serve as a member of the council. And there will be healthy collaborations and interactions with the student representative as well as SU. Yes, Professor Lee. This is a great suggestion from the member. We need the elected representative to play his or her role, and it is crucial that the student representative knows about the plan of the university. So when the representative is elected, apart from the different leadership schemes or programs that we've mentioned, as said by the president, we will have the elected representative participate in our discussion on the budget. And through formal and informal channels, we will let this elected representative learn about the long-term plan of the university so that this representative can tell the students about our plan. Now, between the elected representative as well as SU, will there be a channel for them to interact or communicate? Ideally, we want the president of SU to sit on the council. This will be the ideal case. However, if we have two different students serving as the president as well as the elected representative on the council, we will still work proactively with the president of SU. We will, through informal channels, to collect students' views from the president. Professor Lee, you and the president both said that the university management will talk to the president of SU. Instead of having a formal communication channel between the president of SU and the elected representative, we will try our best to talk to both so that there can be a tripartite interaction. We hope that both of them will be able to reach a consensus with us. Dr. Johnny, any follow-up questions? I have a suggestion. I hope that the university will allocate resources to allow the elected future representative as well as the president of SU can communicate frequently. Thank you. Mr. Rock Chen. Thank you, Chairman. I speak in support of this amendment bill. There will be this new election mechanism. Will the university come up with a system to assess whether this election mechanism fulfilled your expectations? For example, will you assess whether students will be able to express their views to the council? I'm asking if there will be an assessment system on the university's part to assess this election mechanism and to keep improving this mechanism. Mr. Ngai, I thank Mr. Rock Chen for the questions. The postgraduate student representative on the council have been elected to sit on the council for many years. So we're adopting this election mechanism to the undergrad student representative. We keep updating and improving this election mechanism. After the future election to elect the undergrad representative, we will continue to review our election mechanism. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you, Chairman. I once served as a member of an advisory committee at the City University, so I have some knowledge about the governance of the university. Students are important stakeholders of a university. With a student representative on the council, it will help with the university governance. And the past president of SU was an ex-official member of the council. However, there was a lack of representativeness of the president as the student representative on the council. So I speak in support of Mr. Lam's bill. We talked about the level of recognition of the future elected representative. We have to make sure that the future elected representative will be able to speak on behalf of the students and that it will have a good knowledge about the university's future plan so that the representative can help communicate this to the students. However, there might be a problem of low voting rate. Is it the case that university students nowadays are not very keen on taking part in student activities? Of course, if there is an election, the university will launch publicity campaigns to boost the turnout rate, to ensure that there is a good voting vibe and to let students know that it is important to have an undergrad student sitting on the council. However, say there is a voting rate of less than 10%, and you have still an elected representative sitting on the council. If the voting rate is low, the council will decide on whether the elected student representative will be appointed to sit on the council as a member. Will you set a threshold on the voting rate? This might not be included in the ordinance. It might be included in the statute. The threshold can be an indicator for you. If you let students know about the threshold, students may be more keen to take part in the voting. Student unions are like the souls of universities. They organize many activities and events. They play an important role. We might see more undergrad students becoming keen or enthusiastic to take part in students' unions activities in the future, and this will help boost the level of recognition of SU. My question is, of course, it would be great if the president of SU is elected by students and that president can sit on the council. However, say an undergrad student is elected with a high number of votes to sit on the council. Apart from providing leadership training, will you allocate resources to allow that elected representative to communicate with the 12,000 some students? There's a cabinet within SU, and we want that elected representative to be able to communicate with SU. The elected student will take part in the discussion at the council. However, will that elected representative have the resources to frequently reach out to students? I thought there will be a 10% threshold. However, I just asked the legal advisor, and I don't think there is a minimum threshold on the voting rate. Chairman, will you take the questions? I will speak first, and then I'll invite the provost to tell you more. Different members spoke about the students' union. The low participation rate could be because of different reasons. It could be because of the attractiveness of the activities. It could also be because the union could not fully reflect students' views. Students might not be able to benefit from the activities, hence the low participation rate. I'd like to talk about the 10% threshold. We have 12,361 undergrad students. We have 1,782 members in the students' union, accounting for 4.4% of our students. According to the current ordinance, we need 10% quorum threshold, and so the level of recognition has been very low. And the recent election there were only 139 students who voted, and that was less than 2%. That's why we said there was a low level of recognition.
正話
Professor Lee, before you answer, I want to say that Mr. Chen Yuhong's question was whether you have a percentage. Do you have a minimum level, say a threshold? Say you are at 1%, you fail to meet 1%, would there be an arrangement? Would you set a minimum threshold where you consider an election acceptable, or you have to keep rerunning an election if you fall short of that threshold? Do you have this percentage in mind, Professor Lee? We don't have a hard and fast requirement in percentage terms, but we can look at our post-grad student member election. More than 1,000 post-grad students voted. That's more than the 200 undergrad students who voted. In terms of the resources we provide, there will be training of different sorts. The Council Secretariat will also provide various kinds of support for the elected student representative. Our president has just said that it will allow the student member to get involved in the budget process. The student member may have things in mind. Say they may want to hold more student consultations, more events for students. We welcome such ideas, and we will provide the budget for such proposals so that the student member can do their job. Mr. Chen Xiuhong, I have a follow-up question. I get it. On different occasions, CityU has told us about the experience with post-grad students. The voting rate was rather high, but post-grad students are different from undergrad students. Post-grad students are more mature. As for undergrad students, they spend 4 years at the university. They may run into different kinds of issues. They find themselves in a new environment. They may be less keen on taking part in university affairs. CityU has been telling us about all kinds of support and promotion, etc., leadership, development programs. That's important. Providing such training means students will be more keen on getting involved. And you have to let this undergrad student member reach out to the 12,000 fellow undergrad students so that that member can gauge the views of their fellow undergrad students and then tell the council about what they have heard. So the support needs to be stepped up after the bill is amended. Professor Freddie Boy.
Student representation is something that students aspire to be in. It's part of the education process, and it's also an indication of the healthiness of the students' participation. So I think I have every intention to promote and increase the level of participation of students in the voting of these representatives. We'll find all means. Culture is not something that can be changed overnight, but given a few years, I'm sure the trajectory will improve. Thank you.
Okay. 李教授有冇
Professor Lee, any supplement from you? We do have experience in boosting student participation. At CityU, we have done different surveys. The most straightforward way to boost student participation is to find out about what students want, and then we tell them what we have done for them. So we asked students, say during exams, Can we offer longer hours at libraries so that they can study? We've done that, and then we put something on the desk saying that we have taken on board their views, so we decided to offer longer hours at facilities, and students welcomed that change. And we noticed that when we did that, students became more keen to get involved. And we will tell the future undergrad member, more dialogue. Once they have achieved something, they should tell the students what they have achieved, and then in a few years' time, student participation will go up. Professor Downing.
I want to address directly the honourable member's question about thresholds for participation rates. Council Secretariat will continue to monitor very closely the percentage of undergraduate students engaging in this process and actually voting. And should the council deem it to be necessary, we can always go to statute, our committee on statutes, and amend the statute to introduce a threshold. But in the first instance, we'd just like to see and monitor the participation rate. Thank you.
OK， 陳議員。
Mr. Chen Xiuhong, I agree with that. I support that approach. You amend this ordinance, you let things run for a while, you monitor the progress, if necessary, and then you do something about the statute, you make changes. A quick follow-up question. It's about the nitty-gritty. It's about the undergrad student. They will be expected to approach 12,000 fellow undergrad students. Will this student member get their own office? You need a place to address inquiries from fellow undergrad students. You need more than an email address. Say there may be letters, other forms of documents. You need a place, a dedicated place for this student member to get in touch, say to meet with other undergraduate students. So that's something I say City U can consider. Professor.
當然呢啲係基本㗎啦。
Professor Freddie Moore, we will provide such a place. No follow-up questions. Mr. Brave Chen. Thank you, Chairman. I did my undergrad studies at City U, so I am an alumnus. So I'm looking at the numbers, and there was a time we didn't have an SU president, so the SU council chairman had to step in. And that went against the practice of for the postgrad student and the staff member representative. So there is a need for this amendment. So we used to have a small franchise, and the voting rate was on the low side. So we're now aligning the voting practice for undergrad students with that for postgrad and the teaching staff members. So I wonder, for the teaching staff members, do we know what the voting rate was, and what was their participation like, and what was the participation of the postgrad student like? You look at the experience of the postgrad student and the teaching staff representatives, and then we can get a sense of what we can expect from the undergrad student member. Now I turn to my next question. With the new election arrangement, this undergrad student member will come from a much larger franchise. When I was at university, it was hard approaching people from different departments and faculties. So you have to do something, say, more support for the undergrad student member, so that they could get in touch with different faculties and departments. Now, of course, this is something I know the university is already doing. But given so much work involved, the electorate will be much larger, and we're talking about younger students, undergrad students after all. Now, of course, we may not have to say this, put this in the law. I know the president meets with students often, but where appropriate, we should get this undergrad member involved proactively. And when you have interdepartmental activities at the university, let's get this undergrad student member involved. We should give this future undergrad member more opportunities to get involved, and then you will get a more representative undergrad member. And I can imagine the election for this undergrad member will be more complicated because so many more departments and colleges are involved. Getting CityU to help out is better than getting this person to rely on their own resources, because this undergrad student will only have finite resources, much more limited resources. So in the future, for this undergrad student member, CityU should give them more support. I think this point has been made by other members. First, we have to enact this bill, and then it will be up to the university to decide the amount of resources to give to the support for this future student. Now, we already have this one person, one vote for the postgrad student and the teaching staff members. So maybe Mr. Michael Ngai can tell us about the recognition, the voting rate, and also the work of the postgrad student member and the 2 teaching staff representatives. So from what we have at hand, for postgrad students, the voting rate, more than 1,000 postgrad students voted. Now, this is different from the SU. For postgrad students, we're talking about 9% of all postgrad students. In terms of participation, now we also want to thank the Council Secretariat on this point, because for the teaching staff members and the postgrad student member, we offer training. There's a menu or a code. Before, during, and after council meetings, we get in touch with those members. We talk about agenda items. For postgrad students who are more mature, they're still relatively young, so we give them guidelines on how meetings work. So there is guidance, there's dialogue. Now, on support for student members. Now, for the Dean of Students, their office got in touch with student representatives covering sports clubs, other interest classes, etc. We can share the resources with candidates for the student member. We get in touch with our students all the time. I visit the canteen myself. I talk to students. And when there are campus events, say there's a concert, the president sings at the concert. And for alumni events, we also invite current students to get involved. They may serve as the MC, for example. So at CityU, we are closely involved with students. We get involved in events. We just had a recent service, and we got students involved. So we do everything we can on this. Professor Henry Chung. At our office, we will set up a task force. This will be for the election promotion strategy. In terms of gauging students' views, I want to give you an example. Last year, at the Student Development Services, we held 21 consultation sessions. We met with different students. We gauged their views on different aspects of the university. And then the SDS shared these views with different departments and divisions to improve the student experience. On the SU, the SDS also gives support for SUs. We also give support in terms of, say, venue and funding, etc. The SDS also teams up with the SU on organizing large-scale events. So all that is in our plan. Thank you, Chairman. Follow-up questions? No? Next one? Mr. Dennis Leung.
Thank you, Chairman. I declare that I am an alumnus of CTU. I did a postgraduate program at the university. I'm also an advisor to the mathematics faculty. There was a comment about the university diminishing the students' union. Well, I don't think what we're doing now is diminishing the status of the students' unions. I have taught in a secondary school for some 23 years. I care about the development of young people. I still remember that on the 1st of July 2022, President Xi Jinping came to officiate the ceremony of the establishment of the SAR, and he said that it is only when the city prospers that young people will thrive. The SAR government has been doing a lot of work to ensure the healthy development of young people at the kindergarten, primary school level, as well as the secondary school level. We have done a lot of work to promote patriotic education, to ensure that young people have a good future. I hope that people won't get the impression that this amendment bill is targeting the students' unions. Indeed, we aren't. I see that the university has been very down to earth, both at the previous panel meeting as well as the survey issued by the university. I see that over the past few years, the voting rate in the students' union had been very low, especially in 2019 after the blackleg violence. The voting rate has been low. The university used to help the students' union collect the fees for the union, as they collect the tuition fee from students. However, after the blackleg violence, things have been different. It's hard to nurture a student, but it is easier for a student to get astray. I think what is essential is why the students' unions is here. Less than 20% of the undergrad students are now members of the students' union. And among the 20% undergrad students, the voting rate has been lower than 10%. And the elected president of SU gets a very low level of recognition. If we let this elected president with a low recognition to sit on the council, I think there will be a lack of representativeness. We have to be clear that we are electing a student representative, not a member of the student council. If you look at section 10, 1H or 1K of the ordinance, even for postgrad student representative, they are elected among postgraduate students. Postgrad students may have their own student unions, and staff members may have their own staff members' unions. And these unions serve in the interests of their members. However, the University Council is a different thing. It looks at the future development of the university, how the university should make use of its resources. So we cannot make an apple-to-apple comparison between the two kinds of elections. According to section 10, subsection 1J, the president of SU is not automatically a council member, and I think there is a need for us to amend the ordinance. I think in future, the university will have to come up with different ways to allow students to understand what it means to take part in the students' union and why there should be a higher voting rate among undergrad students to elect the SU president. Now, in terms of resources, I don't think it's a problem. When I was in secondary school, I also served as the president of the student union. We distributed leaflets to students to promote our event. You get a group of students running the students' union. And in the past, we didn't have emails, we didn't have social media. Nowadays, if the university is willing to, it can definitely help promote the students' union. Also, I think the Education Bureau should get involved. How could it encourage students to take part in activities as well as leadership programs? We should let students learn more about the development of our country, and the university should help to do so. Well, Ms. G, would you like to say something, because the Education Bureau was mentioned? At the end of 2023, on the virtues of students as well as the education for students, we actually made a report to the panel. UGC-funded universities are independent individual institutions. They have the responsibility to ensure that activities organized by students are lawful and that they are in the interests of students. We think that any activities or events that benefit students, they should be encouraged by universities. However, we do hope that universities can ensure that these activities and events are carried out in an orderly manner and that they are lawful. Well, the questions raised by Mr. Dennis Leung have been widely discussed by members, I believe. Any follow-up questions, Mr. Leung? Yes, Professor Chung. We haven't diminished the status of the Students' Union. We have been keeping a good relationship with the union, like the Education Bureau said. Last year, well, there was an orientation camp, and many citizens care about the orientation camp. So we have been in talks with the Students' Union about the organization of the orientation camp. Also, last month, when there was the election among students, I got a schedule from them. While the voting rate was not high, I'd been monitoring the election. So all along we've been having a good relationship with the Students' Union. Mr. Tang Fei. Chairman, I speak in support of the amendment bill. One purpose of the amendment is to align the election system for postgrad members as well as staff member on the council with that for the undergrad member. Now, according to the bill, the council has the final decision on the appointment of student members, and it has the right to reject a student representative with criminal record to sit on the council. However, according to the paper, there isn't a mechanism to ensure that the elected representative loves the country, loves the university, as well as loves Hong Kong. Will there be vetting from the council on the elected representative before the election or after the election? For primary schools and secondary schools, before they appoint a teacher to work for the schools, there is a vetting mechanism to check whether there is any criminal record, for example. In your guidelines for students who will take part in the voting or the election, will you include a guideline for undergrad students who are going to take part in the election or voting that the elected president will have to love our country and love Hong Kong. This is just a guideline that I'm talking about. There are non-local students doing undergrad programs at the university, and they may not necessarily love Hong Kong. There are pros and cons to formulating a guideline, of course, and again, there are pros and cons for having a vetting mechanism. So I want to know about the details, like how you're going to do the vetting. Now, my other question is about the voting rate. I've been in the education sector for some 20 years. I have been a school principal of a secondary school. I think students from different generations are very different. If you talk to the secondary school students now about 2019 or the political events in 2014 or even back to 2012, they may not have any memory of those. So please don't make any assumption. Say the voting rate for the president of the Students' Union is higher than that for the student representative sitting on the council. It might be embarrassing. So my suggestion is there's no need to stress the low voting rate among students trying to elect a president of SU. Of course, the ideal scenario would be having an elected president of SU serving as a member on the council. However, the tenure of the SU president is different from that of the student representative on the council. SU president usually only serve for a year. And also, the two elections won't happen at the same time. I mean, they're all adults. If you have two students, one serving as the president of SU and one serving on the council, I think you should let them communicate between themselves. Even at the secondary school level, you have a head prefect as well as a president of the Students' Union. I think we have to have faith in our young people to be able to take care of all these by themselves. Now, on the leadership scheme that you talked about, you said the student representative will have the chance to take part in the budget process as well as learn about the future development and governance of the school. Now, I want to know if the training program is going to be a compulsory one. Well, Mr. Tang, could you let the university respond first? I just have one question for you, Mr. Tang. You mentioned about criminal record as well as having a student representative who loves Hong Kong and loves the country. I don't think the university will check the student's criminal record. After the election, you can only check the record before the election. You won't let a candidate who has a criminal record to run in the election, right? And also, the criminal record should not be linked to whether the student loves Hong Kong or the country as well. Now, on the leadership and training program, I think this program should be open to all student leaders of the university. And this will help boost the effectiveness as well as the value of these programs.
Mr. Michael Ngai, I thank Mr. Tang for his questions. Now, his second question was really a suggestion. We agree. You have an SU president, you have an undergrad student member on the council. The two students should work together instead of each working in their own silo. For City U, we give support. So we do agree with Mr. Tang on his second point. Now, for the election, when candidates go on a campaign, they have to agree that they will follow Hong Kong's laws, and that includes Hong Kong's national security legislation, also the university's own rules, and that happens even before the election. Now, for City U, we have been organizing different events to raise national security awareness and the law-abiding obligations for both teaching staff members and student representatives. This applies to pre- and post-election. City U has also been reviewing its regulations and rules to make sure that all students and teaching staff that they have to follow the law, including following our national security legislation. Now I'll come to the member's third question. It's about training. Professor Kevin Downing and also Professor Henry Chung can take that question. Professor Downing, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, we provide training for all council members, irrespective of whether they are elected staff members who serve for 3-year period, or for undergrad or postgrad students that serve for a 1-year period. And not only do we provide the induction training and everyone signs to say they've read and agreed a copy of our code of conduct, but we apply the 7 Nolan principles, which you'll be familiar with. That's selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership. And we actually make quite a big play about those 7 principles when we talk to new council members about the behaviour that's expected of them. One last word. If any council member, irrespective of whether they're student, staff, or even external member, should not abide by any of those 7 principles or by Hong Kong law, then steps will be taken via council to remove them.
鐘教授有冇得補充？
Professor Chung, anything to add? To support the university's development. From 2025 to 26 onwards, every student will have to take a course in whole person development, and that will include national education, national security, legislation, and leadership training. That's to ensure positive development and to ensure students learn about the university, Hong Kong, and our country. Apart from that, all student leaders, and there are 78 student organizations under the SDS, they will undergo leadership training. That's to ensure enhancement to these student leaders. That will be good preparation for students to take part in an election. So that's my response to the members' questions. Any follow-up from the member? No? Mr. Rincon, thank you, Chairman. Just a quick question. I have to leave at 9:50. I welcome this amendment. For undergrad students, this will be a good experience. At Hong Kong U, I got involved in student events. I got training from that experience. With this change, we can work on this grassroots level governance because we are delegating some power for students to get involved in the university's governance. And we shouldn't be putting hurdles in the way. If something is in line with the law and the election goes ahead in line with the law, I think that's good enough. I'm against putting in too many hurdles. With today's climate and social atmosphere, I think undergrad students are mature people. We don't have to go out of our way to give support. Now, I know the clause-by-clause scrutiny may come very soon, so I want to put in my 2 questions. First, I don't see any definition for undergrad and postgrad students. Let's look at the Lingnan University's ordinance and Hong Kong U's ordinance. In their ordinances, there is definition for undergrad and postgrad students. As for the CUHK ordinance, for the part on their election, they don't have a definition, but in that specific part, they do have some detailed explanation. So maybe CityU can look at the ordinances for Lingnan University or HKU or CUHK. Now, for an undergrad student elected to the council, but this student is about to graduate, and that student becomes a postgrad student very soon. So what do? In your statutes, will you allow this student to remain on the council, or when this student ceases to be an undergrad student, they will no longer be on the council? After all, many students go from undergrad studies straight to postgrad studies. So those questions are about the provisions. So who will take the question, please? The provost. Now, it's straightforward. When it comes to the status, when it's a student in an undergrad program, that's an undergrad student. If the program leads towards a postgrad degree, that's a postgrad student. If it's an exchange student not earning our degree, they don't count as an undergrad or postgrad student, so they don't take part in the election. Now, what if it's an undergrad student, but halfway through, this student graduates? So this student ceases to be an undergrad student. Will this student get to sit on the council to serve out their term on the council? So once this student graduates, the status changes. This student won't be able to serve out the term. So once you graduate, you don't remain as an undergrad student. So that position becomes vacant on the council. So will you get a by-election? Will there be a deadline for a by-election for the council? Say 2 months later, the term ends, you don't do a by-election. Or in a different case, you still have 6 months to go. Do you hold a by-election? Is that in the statute? Professor Downing?
Immediately hold a by-election. That case has not arisen, but there is provision for it.
Okay, but there is no time limit to it. Like if it's only a month, then you won't do a re-election or.
We would always, good question, Chairman. We would always hold the election prior to the next council meeting where that was possible. So in other words, there's always student representation at undergraduate level on the council.
Or even for graduate level too. I mean, if they graduated already, then you would then do a by-election before the next council meeting.
Yes, Chairman.
Okay. 下一位郭玲麗議員。
Ms. Lillian Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. We just discussed the transition matter. We got a clear response. So I want to state my support for this bill. We're moving with the times. With this bill, we're expanding the franchise, boosting the recognition, because the percentages figures were rather low. Now, here are my concerns. I haven't heard a clear reply on certain points, so I want to put my questions as follows. Say you have an election, you get a student rep on the council. That student rep has to gauge the views of their fellow undergrad students, and then that student rep lets the council know what undergrad students think. But how do you push that undergrad student rep to truly get in touch with fellow undergrad students? Well, there are people known as armchair theorists, and after getting elected, they sit in their office, and that's all. In the past, the SU organized events, and in that process, the SU got in touch with students. But in the future, you don't get the SU president as your student rep. That student may not be a member of the SU. They're not involved in SU events. That student may not get involved in student events, and they don't get to gauge the views of students. So would there be support from CityU for this student rep just like what Legislative Secretariat does. So will there be support for this student rep to get involved so that there's this link, this bond between the student rep and their fellow undergrad students? Of course, it's best to have the SU president also serving as the undergrad student rep on the council, but reality may work out differently. So how do you address that so that this student rep will be constantly in touch with fellow undergrad students? Now, I have another concern, and this is not just about CityU. From different bills, we have heard about voting rates at other universities also on the low side. So I've been thinking about this. I focus on primary education myself. Voting is a civic responsibility and also a civic right. At secondary school levels, the voting rates are actually rather high. But once you get to university, the voting rate becomes so low. Why? Why this fall in this sense of civic responsibility? So once this future undergrad student rep, would you be working on this? So would you be finding out from this student rep why this drop in the sense of civic responsibility, i.e. voting? Would you be talking to this student rep about raising this sense of civic responsibility to vote? I think this also matters. So I would like to hear from CityU about what they think about this. So I think your questions were asked by other members. CityU has also given a response multiple times. Mr. Michael Ngai, would you like to say something? First, I thank Ms. Lillian Kwok for her questions. Maybe the provost can give us a brief reply. Professor Lee, it's about delivering. If the student rep can deliver, their fellow undergrad students will be keen to vote for this student. So what matters is empowering this student rep. As our president said, there will be a chance for the student rep to get involved in the budgeting process. There will be budget for events. With such resources and with the authority, even the SU president will be able to work with the undergrad student rep. And once these two different students talked and they work together, and they will be able to achieve more. So it's about empowering the students. Any follow-up questions? I think that's good enough for me. We empower them, and the undergrad student rep should be able to apply for funding and work in parallel with the SU. So that should be made clear to the future undergrad student rep. That's a good suggestion. We will do that. Now, on this civic responsibility to vote, as the Dean of Students said, there will be a compulsory course for all students, and they have to pass the course before they graduate. So that's for 2025 and 26 onwards. Okay, you have a course, but that may not really hit home for students. So will CityU require this future undergrad student rep to work through different channels to raise this sense of civic responsibility among their fellow undergraduate students? And can we get this undergrad student rep to help boost the voting rate for future elections? That's a good suggestion. We will actively work with this future student rep. The student rep will be a partner of CityU. We will work together to improve the quality of learning, and that will include the civic responsibility. Mr. Michael Ngai, thank you. On civic mindedness, we encourage students to volunteer, to get involved in the community. We work with CLP. That's to promote green awareness, conserving energy. We also have exhibitions. Students work on as volunteers. They will explain things to people. We keep nurturing this sense of civic mindedness and civic responsibility. But the student made a great point. A quick response from me. Now, my school used to be right beside City U. I got many volunteers from City U students. I know they got involved in international competitions and community events. But on voting, I think they were kind of shy. We cannot shy away from that problem. Voting is a civic responsibility, so we should step up work on that front.
議程第五。
Now we proceed with the next agenda item. Let's get started with the clause-by-clause scrutiny. Please refer to LC paper number CB bracket 2172/2025. That's the markup copy. As well as paper number CB bracket 3314/2025 bracket 02. We'll first look at the Chinese version of the bill. Our legal advisor will, in the course of the clause-by-clause scrutiny, remind members of things that they need to pay attention to. Who from the City University will take us through the bill? The President.
Clause 3. This is the main operative clause that seeks to amend at 5 places in Section 10, which deals with membership of the City University of Hong Kong's Council. The 5 places are detailed as follows. First, Clause 3, bracket 1. It seeks to add inverted comma in accordance with statutes, close inverted comma, after open inverted comma, elected, close inverted comma, in Section 10, bracket 1, subsection H. Clause 3, bracket 2. It seeks to repeal Section 10, bracket 1, subsection bracket J, and substitute open inverted comma, subsection J, 1, undergraduate student elected in accordance with statutes from among undergraduate students and appointed by the Council, and close inverted comma. C, the third. Clause 3, bracket 3. It seeks to add open inverted comma in accordance with statutes, close inverted comma, after open inverted comma, elected, close inverted comma, in Section 10, bracket 1, bracket subsection K. Clause 3, bracket 4. It seeks to add open inverted comma, open inverted comma, bracket J, subsection J, close inverted comma, after open inverted comma, subsection, bracket 1, bracket G, comma, bracket H, close inverted comma, in Section 10, bracket 3, capital B, Clause 3, bracket 5. It seeks to repeal, open inverted comma, a member of the body that elected him, close inverted comma, and substitute, open inverted comma, a member of staff, comma, an undergraduate student or a postgraduate student, bracket, as the case may be, close inverted comma, in Section 10, bracket 3, capital B, bracket subsection B, bracket Roman numeral 2. Clause 4 is the validation provision.
校長，請你等一等，我有兩。
President, please hold on. 2 members have pressed the request to speak button. I want to know whether they want to ask questions about the part that you've just mentioned. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you, Chairman. page 1 of the marked up copy, it says that the original subsection J would be repealed. It says here that one undergrad student elected in accordance with statutes from among undergrad students and appointed by the council. I think we need to specify what kind of undergrad students are being referred to here. At CHK Lingnan University, HKUST, there's an important reference to undergrad students in their ordinances, that is, full-time undergrad students. So the Lingnan University ordinance was amended this way. My question is, say in future you have some full-time undergrad programs. According to your amendment, will these students be included as part of the electorate? If not, will you add a footnote here? Say in other university ordinances, it is specified that undergrad students would include full-time students. Yes, Mr. Chu. There is no such definition under the existing CTU ordinance because there is such definition in the statute. This will leave us some flexibility to amend the statute as and when necessary. Currently, we cover all full-time undergrad students under the statute. Yes, Mr. Chen. It might be because you don't have any non-full-time undergrad programs. In case in the future, there are non-local undergrad programs offered by university, the university will only need to revise the statute. Is that right? Yes. My second question is about bracket 3, capital letter B. It says here, if the member ceases to be a member, how the situation will be dealt with. I understand that there are some exchange programs at the university. Say the elected representative in future has to leave Hong Kong for an exchange program in an overseas university. Will the elected representative be considered as having ceased to be a member? Will you have to terminate the tenure of that representative? Mr. Chu. You're talking about a scenario in which the elected member will be away for a short period of time. It could be for as long as a year. Now, on bracket 3, capital letter B, the amendment is to align the tenure of the undergrad member with that of the postgrad member as well as the staff member, so that this provision will apply to the future elected undergrad representative. Understand that. And this will apply to the postgrad member as well. I think what Mr. Chen is saying, whether the elected representative will be regarded as having ceased his term, right? Yes, I'm talking about the undergrad representative. There might be cases where the elected representative might be away for, say, 6 months and will not be able to sit on the council during that period. Will bracket 3, capital letter B, be applicable to such a situation? Will the elected representative have to, for example, write to the council if he or she will be away for a certain period of time. Be it the postgrad member or the undergrad member, if they have to be away, what will you do? Professor Downing?
Thank you to the honourable member. It's a very good question. Yes, they will be required to write to the Council Secretariat, and then Council will be asked to make a judgment on whether or not they can continue in their role, or if they're away for a long time, whether we need to re-elect.
OK， 李教授。
其實呢個情況咧，唔單
Professor Lee? This will not only apply to the future elected undergrad member. Postgrad member may also face the same situation, our staff member as well, because our staff member can apply for a sabbatical leave for up to a year to, for example, pursue further studies overseas. Of course, this is an extreme case. I believe most of the students or staff members who will sit on the council, they know that they will be away for a year, but it is unlikely for them to run in the election, I believe. If they will only be away just for 2 to 3 months, well, nowadays we have many advanced communication systems like Zoom. They can still fulfill their duties through Zoom, for example. Say there is an extreme case where a student is elected to sit on the council and the student decides to go abroad for a year and thinks that he or she would not be able to fulfill their responsibility or obligations. Like Professor Downing said, we might have to conduct a re-election or by-election. Say an undergrad student is on an exchange program overseas. He or she will still be regarded as a member on the council. I believe that student, if he or she thinks that he will not be able to fulfill his responsibility, he will deal with the situation or write to the council under bracket 3, capital letter B, and I find this reasonable. Yes, Ms. Doreen Kong, I would like to follow up on the questions I raised. Just now, Mr. Chen Xiu-hong helped me ask a question. I want to ask about the definitions of undergrad student and postgraduate student. The university said it would be able to differentiate between undergrad and postgrad students, and that there should be a certain level of flexibility in the ordinance. Well, Chairman, you gave an example about the Chinese University Ordinance. It explains what a undergrad student or a postgrad student is. And it is specified clearly in its ordinance that undergrad students are students who take full-time undergrad programs at the university. It is very clear in the CHK ordinance. I respect the university's autonomy, of course. However, we are talking about an ordinance here. I want us to be all clear about this, like when we scrutinize the CHK ordinance. We should move with the times. Like Mr. Chen Xiu-hong said, there could be students who take part-time programs at the university. At overseas universities, there are online courses. So I wonder if CityU will give a clearer definition on undergrad students and postgrad students.
Who would take the question, please? She stepped away for an interview when we heard the response. Mr. Ronald Chu. Thank you. We appreciate the need for clear definitions. Now, for postgrad and undergrad students, there are clear definitions in our statutes. The merit with this approach is that when times change, circumstances change, say when we get different kinds of undergrad programs or say online programs become a thing, we will be able to define things more clearly in the statutes rather than having to amend the ordinance. Because amending the ordinance will involve electrical, we will have to go through an amendment exercise. Mr. Rincon, any follow-up? Yes. I'm looking at the amendment. It simply says,
student. 咁係邊度？
so what kind of undergrad student are we talking about? Let's look at the CUHK ordinance. They say, for the CUHK ordinance, they say someone pursuing a full-time program at the college accredited or recognized by CUHK. So that's very clear what the CUHK ordinance. I'm sorry, I'm a lawyer by profession, so I am very cautious. Here it says one undergraduate student or one postgraduate student. Where? Which kind of... Where is this student pursuing the studies? Of course, you can say the context would tell us clearly enough it's CDU, but why can't we be clearer? We want to do a better job with the drafting. Mr. Chu. Thank you. We only have full-time undergraduate programs, and now in our statute, it's clearly stated that we're talking about full-time undergraduate students. Mr. Rincon, nothing to add. I would just want to see us do a better job. President, please continue.
Validation provision. The purpose of this provision is to address a possible technical lacuna on the legal status of the electoral rules that governed the elections conducted pursuant to Section 10, bracket 1, bracket subsection H or bracket subsection K of the City University of Hong Kong Ordinance, bracket cap 1132. Under the bill, this provision would not be incorporated into the principal ordinance. B. Having considered the comments of the Legal Service Division, a committee stage amendment would be moved by Honourable Jeffrey LAM to have Clause 4 incorporated into the principal ordinance as Section 25. C. The proposed committee stage amendment would not result in a change to the policy intention of the bill. The Legal Service Division did not have further comment on the proposed committee stage amendment. Thank you.
好啦，各位同事，
So, members. Questions for members? Legal advisor? Mr. Rincon? Sorry, the member is not coming through. Can we switch on the microphone for Mr. Rincon? Sorry, it's about 3B. Sorry, I stepped away just then. 3B, B2. So someone ceases to be a teaching staff member or postgrad student, in whatever case it may be, as the case may be. So we're saying that a student is an undergrad student when they're elected to the council, but then the next year, this student becomes a postgrad student based on 3B, and then B, Roman numeral 2, this student will get to remain on the council. Is that the case? So I'm talking about 3 uppercase B and then lowercase b, Roman numeral 2. Is that the intention? The response came and the reply was no. So you're an undergrad student, you graduate, your position falls vacant, and then they do a by-election before the next council meeting. So the same goes for the postgrad student. The postgrad student graduates, they cease to be a student. So that's what I gathered from CityU's response. So Mr. Ronald Chu, maybe you can say a few words. Thank you. Chairman, we are of one mind on this. This change here simply improves the drafting by offering greater clarity. So we're not making the point that you automatically become a postgrad student member once the undergrad student graduates. Chairman, I'm simply making a suggestion. You don't have to say this in the ordinance, but in your own statutes, you have to spell this out in detail. Mr. Ronald Chu. Thank you. I thank Ms. Doreen Kong for that. I thank her for her great suggestion. We're also reviewing our statute at the moment. So let's come back to our legal advisor. So the English text, any comment from our legal advisor? Thank you, Chairman. I noticed that we still have the long title. Clauses 1, 2, and 5 have yet to be scrutinized. So who will walk us through those clauses? Mr. Ronald Chu. So the long title, clauses 1, 2, and 5.
Of Hong Kong Ordinance to replace the President of the Student Unions as a member of the Council of the City University of Hong Kong Council by an undergraduate student elected from among undergraduate students and appointed by the Council, to bring into line the election and appointment by the Council mechanism of the two staff members, the undergraduate student and the postgraduate student, as members of the Council, and to provide for related matters.
Okay. 冇意見請繼續。
No comment. Let's continue.
The ordinance may be cited as the City University of Hong Kong Amendment Ordinance 2025.
冇問題，請繼續。
No comment. Let's move on.
City University of Hong Kong Ordinance amended. The City University of Hong Kong Ordinance Cap 1132 is amended as set out in Section 3.
冇問題。
Will be
No comment.
OK，冇問題，繼續。
No comment. Let's move on.
saving. Nothing in this ordinance shall affect or be deemed to affect the rights of the central authorities or the government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region under the Basic Law and other laws, or the rights of anybody, politics, or corporate, or of any other person, except such as are mentioned in this ordinance and those claiming by, from, or under them.
OK，冇意見。
No comment. So we actually went through the English text, and we still have to refer to the Chinese text to see if members have comments. Now, apart from the matters raised in the letter, the Legal Service Division has not spotted any drafting or legal issue in the Chinese or English text. So, members have no other comments. Mr. Jeffrey LAM wrote to us with the proposed committee stage amendment on the 12th of March. Now, this is set out in LC paper number CB bracket 3334/2025 bracket 01. The draft has been forwarded to members. So this was made in response to comments from the LSD, our legal advisor. So does any member have questions on this committee stage amendment? Mr. Jeffrey Lam, would you like to say anything? Nothing to add. I think that's set out on the agenda. Anything to add from CTU? If not, now we have gone through the scrutiny. Now my question for the legal advisor is, legal advisor, any comment on the proposed amendment? Thank you, Chairman. In terms of legal and drafting, the LSD has no comment. If members would like to move any amendment to this bill for the Bills Committee to consider, please make this amendment by 5 p.m. on the 21st of March. That's Friday. Please send your draft, if any, to the Secretariat, and then, depending on the circumstances, the Bills Committee may hold further meetings. If no further meetings are needed, the Secretariat will then get in touch with Mr. Jeffrey Lam and City U about resuming the second reading debate, and then let members know, and then we will make a report to the House Committee. Item 2, any other business? I have no other business. I can adjourn the meeting here. Thank you.